Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mic Check 2.
Two.
We are starting the year off very strong. I want to go ahead and introduce myself and our guests. So, my name is Rachel and the lovely co host, Aja.
Hi, guys.
And we have Sean.
Hey, everybody.
And we're also joined today by the CEO of St. Hope Foundation, Mr. Rodney Goodie.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, welcome.
Let me sit up straight. Hold on.
Okay.
We got to be on our best behavior.
As you can see, we're a little chipper this morning. We got the big honcho in the building. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and just dive right into it. Today's topic is going to be focused around starting a business.
Our topic is starting a business. I wanted to focus it around Martin Luther King Day because he had a dream. And I was always a firm believer in people that started businesses because they also, too, in essence, have a dream. So that's why we wanted to invite you just to get some insights on being the CEO, daily life of a CEO, what made you want to start St. Hope Foundation, and things of that nature.
Very good.
Ooh, that's a great question. What made you want to start St. Hope Foundation?
Wow, it's been a long time ago. This is near our 24th year. And so really just to speed it up, basically I was the COO of an infectious disease practice that was seeing a lot of HIV patients. And so I realized that about halfway through the first year that the leadership and I didn't really kind of have the same vision about where to take the program. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, why don't you start your own nonprofit? You have the expertise, you know about grant writing, so why haven't you done this yourself?" And I was like, bah humbug. I just kind of blew it off. And so the more I thought about it, but I think the element of thinking about a business had been there for a long time, but I never thought about a nonprofit business. So I never thought about that kind of entity. So when I thought about it, I said, well, yeah, I can do this. And so moved forward with doing all the things to set up a nonprofit and wrote grants for the first round and kept my current job just in case I didn't get funded so I could still keep working. And lo and behold, I got a notice saying that we won an award on that first round. And 2 weeks later, I put my notice in and said, I don't know what I'm gonna make over at this new location, but I'm out. And so that's how St. Hope started. And so we really started in transportation and rental assistance. And so a lot of people think we started in medical. We really didn't start in medical until about 2 years later after that. So in 2000, we were funded. In 2002, at that time for HIV care, people were still driving in a long distance, rural. They was coming into Thomas Street, the public health center for care. And we said, well, you have this large number of patients out in the northern part of the Harris County to Montgomery area. And we said, hey, why don't we write a grant for medical mobile care next to a food pantry? And so we wrote the grant and poof, we got funded for that. And I was like, okay, so what do you do now? So we set up the medical mobile unit, and medical mobile units are a great deal, but there are things about it that people don't think about, which is that the mobile unit is going to break down often, not just a few times. And so probably 6 months in, we really realized that, this is a lot more work to keep this going. And the patients were coming in because we were right connected to a food pantry in Conroe area. Well, the food pantry dissolved. And so we ended up taking over the space in the food pantry and converting it into medical space. And so that's really where we started our first medical program. Conroe was the first start for us. And then the next year, we wrote to expand the medical program to service the Fort Bend area and then into the Harris County area. And so we started in HIV. Our roots are really grounded in HIV. We're the second largest HIV provider as far as community health centers in the Houston area, neck and neck with Legacy. And proud of that. And I think that how we really fashioned that was really thinking about, creating a space where people felt safe, creating a space where people felt valued, Creating a space where when you walk into a private practice office, you feel personal connection, not just some big community public clinic. And so that's how we started. And then we mushroomed into saying, okay, how do we evolve the vision of the organization? In 2008 and 9, we started with doing OB-GYN care. And then we eventually wrote to say, hey, we can just do general medical care for the entire community and become an FQHC. And so federally qualified health center. And so all those years ago, we
Many
are here
moons.
now. So that's how we started.
I do like how you said that it basically started from, I guess, leadership that you weren't really vibing with, I guess. And then you just kind of were like, I could do this. So just having a little faith in yourself. That's nice.
So you started your business. So when you initially had your vision, and I know this is probably be insight for other people out there that also are interested in starting their own business. What would you say would be the first top 3 things that you should focus on when the idea comes in here? You know what? I want to start a business. What would you focus on first?
Yeah, if you want to start a business, I would say think about your calling. So it should be something you really love doing. So if you don't love doing it, if you're trying to learn something new, that's fine. But I think that where your genuineness comes from is your calling of knowing why you're doing it and why it matters to you. And so once you know that, there's so many resources out there. So you can look online, you can find tons of business opportunities for startup businesses to go and find, depending on what niche that you're in. So if it's not nonprofit, if it's just a for-profit, you want to do a nail salon, you want to do this. There's so many opportunities out there that people can look at. And so once you do that, I would say once you know what you kind of want to do, say, who's doing it well? That's really how, when you expand services, like, who does this well? And then, am I going to offer something different to the community or to the customer that's unique and different from what's already out there? And so I think that's the start. It's like thinking about, and a lot of people do that. They go and they have services, they go and get something and they go, oh, I wish they changed this. I wish they changed that. I wish this could, da 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 da. And so in their head, they're actually going through the concept of processing of what would be a better business model that would work well, and what clientele would I target with this business model? And so there's just so many options out there for folks to choose, but they just really have to think about it and then write it down. A lot of people think about it, they talk to friends about it, and then poof, it's gone until they go somewhere else and they see it again. So yeah.
I like having a passion behind your business, because some people just be starting up businesses with them P. How many P's was it? Loans, and they just starting stuff, trying to get revenue. So, and you can kind of see it in their business when it doesn't last long. Like you said, you're on 24 years here, so you had to have a passion behind that.
Yeah, I think that's important. You can do businesses to generate revenue. Like, a lot of folks want to start businesses because they want to be their own boss and they want to make money. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's cool. The question is that business going to be something that you're going to be proud of on your resume, on your epitaph? If you go on off to heaven and people look back and say, they started that business and that business was, but a lot of people just start it because they're just trying to make money. So you're right. I think it's more about calling.
Sound like a popcorn business.
Okay. Hashtag. We got our first hashtag.
Popcorn business?
Popcorn, it pop up, but then
it don't last long.
Then you got another one that pop up, don't last long. Hashtag. Popcorn business, real quick.
That's our first hashtag of the year.
Yes, hashtag.
Pop up.
Popcorn.
Popcorn.
Okay, so just to get a little bit more serious, so I have a question. St. Hope, 24 years. Obviously, this was a marathon and not a sprint. So how did you stay on track and stay disciplined? Because we know your motivation levels change daily, weekly. So how did you stay on track? How did you stay disciplined with, this is what I'm going to do and this is what I'm sticking to?
Very good question. I think in the early days, I had to let go quite a few friends.
Everybody can't go
I
with you.
I believe in that though.
Yeah, you have to
If
purge.
they don't share the same vision, same
Yeah,
mindset, it's
yeah.
kind of
Purging is so important because if you think you're gonna carry all the same weight with a new idea, a big growth opportunity idea, you're not gonna go anywhere. So it's more of just, and I remember a good friend of mine who, still a friend, won't say a name, but basically, they used to call me all the time about, complaining about their relationship, and I would listen to it every day. Then I realized when I get off the call, I was irritated. So I would be taking all my irritation out on staff. And it took me like half a morning to kind of bring myself back. And so I cut the call out. And so I started compartmentalizing and putting certain types of conversations in my startup, being focused on what I listen to, what I take in. So that mind, body, and spirit approach of just saying, what am I taking in mentally? If you take in negativity at the start of your day, to me, it's hard for me to get on course with getting the things done about starting a business, a vision, or direction that I want to change in my life. And so that's important. Um, Friends, like definitely seeking out positive influences. And so there are many places now. So you can get them on podcasts. So I'm serious. I mean, you can really listen to some really good podcasts on specific topics that will nurture your spirit. And you'd be surprised when you ask people in the morning what they listen to, and you can kind of see why they are in the frame that they're in when you're talking to them. And they're like, why are you always so happy? Why are you always so this? And da, da, da. I said, well, it doesn't mean I don't have adversity or issues coming. It's just that I really focus on locking out certain things when I start in the morning. So I don't really watch the news. My mother watched the news. She's going to talk about me on this podcast, but I call her. I call her the other day and I say, hey, what happened to the news today? She said, and she runs through this list and she says, I know you didn't watch the news. You need to know what's going on in the world. I say, yeah, but I can't start my day that way. So
Yeah, the news is very tragic.
so I think the important part is the influences of who you have around you. You always have to have someone that's, like Alicia Keys used to say, you are the average of your 5 closest friends. So when you look at your 5 closest friends, you might have to cycle it around because you should have somebody in that group that's ahead or doing things that you want to aspire to. So you should find out, like, what am I listening to that's influencing me, because that's going to pull me up. Or if I'm around folks who are all negative and they're always fussing and complaining about stuff, and every time we get to eat lunch and you just sit there and they're just talking about issue after issue, you said, this is not going to move me forward. So it's just really thinking about it that way.
I was just interested to know what was like one of the most difficult decisions you had to make in your career time. I know losing friends and cutting people off is pretty difficult. Would you still say that, or could you think of
No,
another?
from the business side, because we're talking about the business, the hardest decision that in 24 years has been to lay off people. When you try to nurture a team and you try to show them that you value them, and then you turn around next month and you say, well, guys, we got to lay you off.
Yeah.
That's hard. And so, but I do think that when you're open and transparent with people about why you're laying them off, and people see what's going on, it's understandable, as opposed to just not having a plan for how you're going to do it. And in this situation, that happened in 2020, right at the start of the COVID pandemic. One of the programs, dental program, was severely impacted because the state just basically said no dental services are allowed, and the only services could be offered was like emergency services. And so that pretty much shut all of our dental programs down. So having to kind of cut that whole team down was tough. But they all were understanding and they understood what was going on. But that still was a tough period.
And most of them returned. So
Yeah, we in 30 days actually, we were able to bring them back, and we resumed right back to what we were doing. Yes.
So you briefly spoke about adversity. How do you overcome adversity? Because I'm pretty sure that comes up in business a lot with, do we invest in this or do we go this way? You have so many directions that you can go to. So I'm sure obstacles pop up. Do you look at those as lessons? What's your mindset on that?
Yes, adversity is just part of the journey. You have to lean into it and see it as an opportunity. When I'm having a really difficult period, depending on a day, it's like I end up shutting myself down earlier. I go to bed earlier. I just kind of get in a quiet space, and then I just start the new day with looking at what can I do better. How do I get better with whatever that situation is, from failures and things that you try and that don't work. You do have to be willing to starting a business. You may start something that just fails, but you take that opportunity of learning from what didn't go right. Maybe we didn't market the right way. Maybe we didn't go about recruiting the right people the right way. Maybe we weren't disciplined here. So failures are always good, great teaching moments, because it's a true setback. It kind of helps you come back to reality of saying, I'm human.
That was a big dream.
I had this big dream. It was big, and so I often think when people start businesses, that it's such a huge investment emotionally. But if you have a job already, figure out how you can keep your current job and try to grow it instead of just going cold turkey, because those are just so huge of a risk. And you see people like exhaust all of their retirement savings or their savings account, and they just go all in on it, and it just crash and burn. And so I always say, like you say, look at your competitors, but keep kind of taking chunks off of trying to grow it from scratch. Like I've seen some friends of mine where they keep their current job and then they start the business on the side, and then they just kind of grow it from there. And they're constantly checking on it. They're just constantly moving through it. At some point, you get to the point where you say, bye, I gotta go. You know when it's time. But I just think that in this day and time, starting over from zero, no one wants to spend all of their savings that took years to save up, and then you're back to ground zero and you're trying to do it. You can, but it's just
Very difficult.
yeah. More difficult.
That's kind of funny, because in today's society, you just see like, don't do no 9 to 5. Just go after your dream. So it's just very important to still be reasonable with your dream. You have to have a backup plan, essentially, or at least backup savings.
Right. And sometimes adversity is, I was just thinking, sometimes you have adversity where people are just not for you. They find ways to undermine your efforts of what you're trying to do. And I remember many, many, many years ago, and this wasn't at St. Hope, I remember this gentleman telling me I had applied for a job, and he said, "Why did you apply for that job?" And I said, "Well, I thought I was qualified for it." And he was like, "Well, I was going to give that job. I was going to recommend my niece for that job, and I didn't need you to apply for it. So can you tell them to rescind your..."
Absolutely not. Okay.
And
Somebody else to do it.
and I was shocked, because it was somebody I really looked up to. And then at that point, he never spoke to me ever again. And then when I started at St. Hope, I ran into him like at the 10-year St. Hope, and we were out in Sunnyside, and they asked me to speak, and I spoke. And so he saw me, and he came up immediately. He's like, and he looked me up and down and says, "I never thought you'd become who you become." I say, "Well, look at God," and I just walked off. But I think that reminded me of Psalms 23, with "Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemy." There are times you're going to come full circle with people who just really were not for you. And it's not because, I always tell people, I don't really chase after folks who try to undermine you. You just keep trying to do what you're supposed to do. God has a way of putting them right back in front of you where they see how God has blessed you. So I just say that.
Sound like a footstool to me. Okay.
We're going to church today. So, I know you did mention like kind of starting up from scratch and things like that. Is there anything like in the healthcare industry, since we're going back to the business, that you feel it's lacking that you may eventually want to add to St. Hope, or like a service potentially?
Yes, I thought about it, and I'm thinking about it. And one of the areas that we really have a desire for is dermatology. Yeah, because we think that, people really like to pay attention to how they look. Their skin is very important to them. And they will do whatever nowadays. I mean, really, literally. So I think it's important people feel value in their look, and so I think dermatology is an area that we definitely are looking at bringing into the organization.
Especially as people of color,
Yes.
I've been to a few dermatologists.
And that's really ambitious. I feel like you have to keep changing and evolving to what the population needs. So that's a good one.
It is, because I actually have people that call and do ask, do y'all offer dermatology? And I'm like, ooh. So
Let me
it's funny
find you
that
a
he
number.
brought.
That's what you'd be like.
Right.
Okay.
Speaking of adversities, I wanted to go back real quick. There was something I really wanted to ask, and I think Jeremy also wanted to ask. Starting a business as an African American man, did you have challenges with it being a black owned business in the industry that's not really ran by any African Americans? Was there did you have any hardships or difficulties in that?
Um, from the nonprofit side, I think it's the opportunity is a lot more, I don't say forgiving, but are a little open, because the nonprofit sector is, if you had to say what business sector is more embracing of diversity, nonprofit sector is going to be tops, I would think, out of all industries. There's second would probably be healthcare, but nonprofit sector is definitely going to be that way. But um, I don't know if I'd say it specifically like, did I feel like, do I feel like I had situations where I was discriminated against and different things? Yes, I do. Um, so yeah, I think so. I think you have that. You're gonna have those situations um, in your business model. So you just have to anticipate it. I think now though, in the culture that we live in, that's really focused on diversity and inclusion. If you're in a business model, people are focused on trying to make sure that they are allowing everybody equal access to be supported and feel valued in starting their businesses. But yeah, probably so. I would say there was some.
Yeah, back then before everything became so inclusive. Yeah.
So basically, throughout this whole process, I mean, we know it's not over because we're growing, we're expanding. But up until now, what is one thing that you learned about yourself that kind of shocked you? Yeah,
yes.
because it's just like, we all know what we're capable of, but then sometimes we get in situations and you really see what you're capable of. So what's one thing you learned about yourself
Starting your business.
in starting this business?
Persistence. It's like I've learned that, I don't give up. So sometimes you get knocked down and you just get back up. And that's something that, well, I guess I never thought about myself in that way, but yeah, I think you're gonna have setbacks, but the persistence of keep moving forward, keep stepping forward, keep taking your vision and keep going forward is something I've really learned about myself. So yeah.
Like you said, everybody's not going to share that vision, and you may even get a lot of no's
Right.
and a lot of closed doors in your face, but you have to keep going
You
forward.
got to keep going forward.
And so I have another question. I'm just rolling, guys. I'm sorry. Did you, in the beginning, did you ever second guess yourself or experience imposter syndrome once things started to take off for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think everybody has that. We all have doubts. We are humans. Even when we have the tough exterior, we get behind our closed doors, we question. And it's tougher when you have a lot of people following you, because you don't want to let them down either. So I think in the early days, if you only got 4 or 5 people, you didn't think of it that way. You just like, but yeah, you go through this period where you really, there are times when you get to the point where you doubt or you question, am I making the right decision? Is this the best decision? Is this the best business to start? But that's the journey of it. You still have to take the risk. You still have to do all the measures to take the risk.
So for our listeners, especially some of our younger listeners, how would you tell them to combat that? Like, what do you, because I know sometimes we get in our head and, you know, especially just like getting promotions at work or getting recognition, or you experiencing your first success and you kind of just like, do I belong here? How do you help someone to combat that? Because I'm pretty sure people look up to you, and I'm glued, I'm tuned in, so.
Well, you have to have at least 2 or 3 trusted friends, to be honest with you. So they have to know you fully, and they have to be able to nurture that, because when you have a trusted person, they can say, hey, look, you know, you've done all these things well. This is a setback. Don't focus on that. Move forward. Those are the people that you pay attention to. And you have to have a couple of 2 or 3 super loyal friends who are really going to nudge you in that right direction, and they know where you're trying to get to. And so those are the things that move you forward. And the more you grow, leadership and that whole growth feels lonely, but that's why you have those couple of trusted folks. And so those people really are the ones that will help you to kind of shake that off of you and keep on going in the direction you're supposed to go in.
And you have to have that level of transparency. So
Yep.
even if
Yep.
they're telling you something, you have to be open-minded to like, you know
to
what?
listen. Yep.
Okay.
You're right on it.
I really hate to do this, but I'm thinking more money, more problems. Like, so you have to have trusted friends to keep you grounded and, you know, secure and confident in like that you are making the right decisions.
Yeah, one of the people I admire a lot and is LeBron James, because he brought his group of friends from high school all the way up through his career path, and look at them now. You know, Rich Paul's agent, he went to school and got his MBA and learned how to take care of LeBron's business. These are close friends, and so it may not be people that you grew up with, but you just have to have a couple of loyal friends that really, like Sean says, is you're transparent with, and you can be honest about your setbacks, honest about where you're going, and they can kind of move you in that direction to say, keep going. They're going to keep pushing you in that direction.
So this is something that I struggle with because, you know, you already know I have like a little small business on myself.
Right.
But I want to ask you, because I know you are on the go, nonstop. Like, you're in meetings, you got business calls, you got Zoom calls. How do you balance work life?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Because I know you also have your sons, you have things going on personally. Like, how do you get all of that and make sure everybody's happy? Your business is happy, your family's happy, you're happy. What do you do?
Oh, I don't know if I can make everybody happy, but I know where you're going. Definitely, you really have to go back and say, did I carve out some space for me? So if you don't carve any space out for you, you can't help any of the other folks at all. It's really starting off with, even if it's 30 minutes. So I have this thing that I get up early and I'll soak for like 30 minutes. And in that soak, that is my setting space. It's my space of meditation, my space of deciding, you know, where I'm going for the day. But you have to carve out just some space where there's not the phone, there's not the TV, there's nothing playing. It's just let your thoughts flow, and that helps me to set my day. Once you do that, then you have to decide what, you know, once you've set your list you're going to do for the day, you know, make sure that you're kind of chunking things into the right space. I think a lot of times people have just a wide open schedule. So, you know, people used to love the philosophy of, I have an open door policy, and I'm not a fan of it. So you have to have some time where it's closed. You have to have time where you can think. You have to have time. So compartmentalizing things and chunking it into space. If you're going to meet with folks, figuring out how to do that in spaces and truncate in short spots. And so if we get on a call, they'll hear me say that. Say, okay, guys, we only got 30 minutes. So I've already set an end time. So if we hadn't finished the discussion in 30 minutes, we will be done. So,
Beep, beep. No.
you know, because if you don't, then meetings could run longer. conversations go longer. So I think it's just really constantly reprioritizing and carving out spaces where you can think, carving out spaces where how you be methodical in your day to say, this is a time, this slot, I'm going to do this, and making sure. I think that for me, I look at the mind, body, and spirit. So I look at, how am I shaping my mind for the day? So what have I taken in? Is it directing me in the right direction I want to go to? Then the body is that dreaded thing of working out. So you have to find whatever workout you do or exercise, you just need to do something on a consistent basis over time. That gives you your energy level. I worked out before I came here so I could make sure my energy level was up. So you just have to make sure you're doing things to keep your physical strength up because you need it. And then my spirit is just, making sure you have a spiritual connection, getting your oneness, what brings you back, connecting with God, how you use that spiritual space, that's important to you. And so when you do that, I feel whole. I feel like I can handle stresses. I'm not knee-jerk reaction and biting people's head off if they say something. Sometimes senior managers call me and says, oh, da 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 da. And I said, oh, so what are you going to do about that? They're wondering, like, why am I not upset? Like, why am I not in the same kind of frenzy? And I said, well, and it is about it's about you setting that space. And so, and I think that's an individual decision. So it's kind of how I've gone about it. Hopefully that helps.
It does.
Okay.
I think you're really good too with having your leadership in place. That helps with the business too. Like you said, when they call you, you kind of put it back on them to solve the problem, and that gives them more confidence.
Yeah, St. Hope, I'll say this before we go. St. Hope would not be the organization it is if it wasn't for the great team of leadership and the great staff that we have. Mm-hmm. I had a vision, still have a vision of the organization, but it takes all the other ones to see themselves as CEOs in the company too, to value the company like they're the CEO. So when people take that kind of approach, then they treat the patients differently. They don't see the patient as just no, I'm just getting a paycheck. They see it as, no, I want you to have a great experience. Right. I'm the CEO of the company. You are? Yes. And the point is that you get people there to that space of saying that, to say, CEO really means that you care. I'm really going to give you the exceptional experience. And so that's important.
So I do have one question. I know we're going to wrap it up soon, but I just want to know, what's a big misconception with starting a business that you encountered?
That you're going to make or grow just as fast as you thought you was in the first year, the first 2 years, that you're going to make all this money. You're going to, all these things are just going to just grow exponentially because you had this great vision. So I think that often rarely happens. So most times it's you're going to have to grind at it and know your competitors and really get into the market to compete, because there's so many options for customers, so many options for patients. They can choose where they want to go, and there's so many different strategies out there. The other thing is, when you start your business, whatever idea you had, Sean, in 12 months, it has to innovate. You have to have 3 or 4 more ideas, because your competitors, if you're doing something good, let's just say you start a hair salon and you're doing this kind of way, your competitors are going to find it and they're going to replicate it. They're going to bring it into their model. And then now they're doing what you're doing. So you have to be ready to start thinking about 2 or 3 more new strategies. So it is thinking ahead. Once this is off, this is a great idea. Now, what are the next 2 or 3 steps? Because your competitors are going to constantly look at you to figure out, well, we can do that. We see that with our commercials. Like when St. Hope started our commercials, it was it's diversity there. You see these people look like they really care. So now you see other larger systems, they bringing in diversity into their commercial. Even though they are actors and talents. They're not the actual doctors and like we have, but your competitors will work to try to say, oh, that's a good idea. That's a good strategy. So they're going to take your strategy and replicate it and rebrand it. So you have to keep thinking of what is next, and keep changing. 'Cause if you're doing the same thing in 12 months, next 12 months, you won't be in business. You know, St. Hope, when we started housing and rental assistance and transportation. Transportation is the only thing that we have from the beginning. Housing and rental assistance, we rewrote for the grant and did get funded for it. But we had went to prevention, we had went to case management, we had went to medical services, we had went to more, we kept growing into different spaces. And so I think that's the part you have to keep moving ahead. You can't just keep that little one idea because
It's not gonna get you your yacht anymore.
there you
That
go.
one idea.
There you go.
I'm over here taking mental notes. So that's why usually y'all see me as a little more goofy and stuff. I'm actually like taking this in just because I kind of understand where he's coming from in a sense. So
And that was the whole point of this episode.
it's like when you especially for like
the community.
yeah, so especially for like young business owners and things of that nature, you get to hear from someone experienced that I know. Even there's a lot of like, for example, fashion designers. They don't blow up until they're in their mid 40s, going into 50s. So for people that are starting in their 20s, it's like what you said earlier with persistence. It's like keep going, even though it's not lucrative right now or you're not seeing it.
Right.
People don't really blow up until their 40s, 50s, and then finally, boom, and here you are.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, what you started with, it may not be the what product or service you started with may not end up being a service that grows exponentially. So that you just have to keep going until that door just opens. So yeah.
I do too. Okay, so just to briefly recap everything, we're supposed to give ourselves grace. We're supposed to be open to transformation.
That's right.
Transparency.
Yes.
Transparency.
Have good friends.
Yes.
Expect a little bit adversity, but be persistent in your bounce back. That was the biggest one.
well
You
said.
gotta be persistent in your bounce
and
back.
a close relationship with God.
Close relationship with God.
Yes.
Yes.
No popcorn. I'm
No
back on the popcorn. I'm back on the popcorn business. No
Don't.
popcorn business.
Quit your popcorn businesses, y'all.
We've seen it. We've seen it.
You're there one day, you're gone tomorrow.
Be persistent.
Persistent.
Okay.
Just to kind of close out the episode, we got a little serious.
Yes.
I'm just gonna give you the floor one more time to just say anything that we didn't touch on. But before you get into that, what is one quote that you live by?
I like quotes a lot.
I know you got a lot.
He gave us some
do.
while we were doing this.
Right.
I do. One that stuck with me that is actually my quote, and I don't think anyone has said it, is you have a finite amount of time, a finite amount of energy, and a finite amount of resources. And so why that's important to me is that the minute you take your life and you say there's an end, you start moving with more urgency. You change how you go about your trajectory of cutting the friends off, trimming things down to this is not going to get me where I'm trying to go because I've only got a finite amount of time. The energy part is your energy wanes as you get older. So you know that you capitalize on your youth and your young years and you try to take advantage of that time as far as the energy, and the resources are not there. So you may have limited resources. Sometimes people start business. Most times their issue is capital. They don't have enough capital to really do the bigger things that they want to do. So figuring out how to start a business with finite resources. I kind of see it like buffets. You know, it's like, oh, you go to the buffet, and I'm terrible at buffets because I'm quick to say I only want this, and I'm done. But there's a buffet. What is it? I can't think of the name of it. But anyway, they have the whole a la carte of everything. And so people, because there's so many cuisines nowadays, people want to try everything. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you tried that? And before they know it, they're so off task with whatever they had to do because they just have consumed everything. And I think that's really what life is that there's so many options out there. There's so many opportunities out there. And once you channel what you really want to do and what your calling is, then go in that kind of channel view and don't eat everything from the buffet. Just eat here because this is going to move me in that direction. You can have a cheat day, but you can't have 5 cheat days and
2 work days. It's giving stay in your lane.
you have to flip it around. So you got to have 5 good days.
You said the 80-20 balance.
There you
We're
go.
doing the 80-20 balance.
You got to change that direction. And so I think the whole approach is really being select because life is going to give you a lot of good opportunities, but you can only choose so many. But you still see a lot of people trying to choose everything. And then they wonder, well, why haven't I gotten where I wanted to get to? And I was like, because you got too many things on the table. So, yeah.
My favorite thing about this whole conversation was as you hear, this man did not say anything as far as toxic entrepreneurship. Sometimes people like to do this, I'm asleep when I die, team no sleep. He prioritizes his sleep.
Yes.
He makes sure he takes care of himself because I do also feel like in our generation specifically, that whole grind culture, people just take it too far. Like, no, you actually do have to find the time for yourself, find your mind, your body, and your spirit.
Correct.
So I am glad that you did touch on that. I had to bring that up. It was
you.
just sitting on me. I had to bring it up.
Thank you.
So Sean says, we appreciate your time taking out of your busy schedule and prioritizing.
Yes.
I'm gonna get that word, prioritizing the podcast for us today.
Thank you.
So,
I've enjoyed it. Y'all are great, and I'm an avid fan, so I'll continue to listen to y'all the rest of the year.
Oh.
Yeah, we got some good episodes coming.
Awesome.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Like I said at the beginning, I know this is a little different, but I think it's important for everybody out there, especially young listeners or even older listeners. If you want to try, if you have a goal, go for it in essence. So never no time like now. Yeah, the present. So
Okay. I'm gonna let the hashtag go. 2022. Okay.
Don't forget to visit our website at offeringhope.org. Give us a call, use the chat feature, and thank you for tuning in and spending some time with us. We love y'all and see you next episode.
And always remember, here at St. Hope, you're more than just a number.